Today on Everyday Leaders, I am Melahni Ake, and we are getting ready to set up a live interview with Bob Burg, the co-author of Go Givers. So we are excited to have him here in the room. It is Leaders. I am Melahni, and we have Dennis LaRue also in the background on our Zoom line. For those of you that would like to join us with Bob Burg, you can just click the link and you can join in the live room. So we're going to really put it to Bob, put the value test to Bob today. As you know me, here we are, everyday leaders, and our influence is to help impact the world and create better leaders. And that all starts with adding value to the world, adding value to ourselves, and adding value to the world. And so, Bob, I adore you. I read the Go Givers book when I was at a medical device company, and it really made me think differently about how we really were trying to represent ourselves to clients. And so I'm just honored to have you here today. And a quick introduction, you are a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, author several times over, and you really are able to pour value into others through these principles of the Go Givers book. And I want to dive into these principles, but first of all, I'm going to stop talking, as my husband would say, and welcome you and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Dennis. It's great to be with both of you, and just an honor to get to chat with you. And I know the two of you add immense value to the lives of many people through your association with the Maxwell organization and everything else you're doing. So it's really just a treat to be with y'all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think we all kind of, in this journey, right? We all kind of get this light or the light bulb that comes on at some point and you go, well, can I do more? Am I missing something? Is there a billboard that I should be seeing that I haven't seen yet? That I have some purpose in the world that I'm supposed to fulfill? And so I'm really curious. I mean, I know all about, some of our journeys, but when you met John David Mann and you guys came up with this, you know, idea to kind of put these words on paper and create value for people through a book. John Maxwell says you can meet a lot of people, but you can influence more by writing a book, right? Those people you would never meet.
Great point.
And so, what's your relationship kind of going back with John? And where did that start? And where did this idea come from?
So, okay, so let's start with the idea first. We'll go in chronological order, but I'll still
Yeah.
try to do a Reader's Digest version. Years ago, actually, back in the 90s, I had a book called Endless Referrals. That was my kind of first big book. It was a how-to book, and it was really for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it added immense value to others, but they didn't necessarily feel confident or we'll just say confident or comfortable, I guess you could say too, going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships with people that would uh, eh, that would result in people wanting to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So Endless Referrals was a roadmap. It was a methodology. It was a system for doing so. I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. That's what Endless Referrals was, a system. And and it was interesting though, because as many books as I've written, I love reading how-to books, but I also always loved reading parables. And because parables are stories, and I think we all kind of intuitively know that stories connect on a much deeper level than a how-to book does. I think when you're reading at least the way I felt when I would read parables, I felt a better connection with the author, a better connection with the principles that were being taught, and also I felt connected to the characters themselves, right? And I thought, what if we could take the basic premise of endless referrals, which was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And that's sort of been my uh, calling card, if you will, for the past whatever 35 years and so forth. Sometimes that saying it gets a little misconstrued when it's repeated, but it's that whole saying about all things being equal and the whole about the refer and so forth. What if we could take that and put that into a parable, a short story? Um, so I basically asked myself the question: what is the underlying oh gosh, trying to pull the word out here, the underlying not principle but the essence of that person who's able to quickly and sustainably create those know, like, and trust relationships. And really it comes down to that they are givers. They're always looking for ways to give value to others. Okay, so coming up with the title The Go Giver, that was pretty easy. um, but then I thought, well, if we're going to take this book, we want it to be the best book we can make it. And I am a how-to author. Okay, I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. I can tell a story from stage based on something that's happened, but the parable would have to be a work of fiction. Okay, and so I'm not a fiction writer, and while I don't have a challenge operating outside my comfort zone, writing this would be outside. And Dr. Maxwell actually gave me the words for this. Because when I was telling him about these, he said, Bob, it's not that it was outside your comfort zone, it was outside your strength zone. I thought, yep, that's exactly what it is. I knew it was outside my strength zone. Okay. And I happened to know this guy, John David Mann, had never met him personally, but knew him because he was the editor in chief at a magazine I used to write for. I used to write a monthly column for. So he was my editor, right? And he was always so great. He was always so brilliant, and he was humble, and he would write back every month, and he'd say, well, I made this correction here, I changed this word here, I put this, is that okay? Which he didn't have to do as the editor in chief. He could have just done, but he always did that, right? Which speaks to his character. And the running joke was I would write him back every month and say, John, not only is it okay, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. And back then John wasn't as well known as he is now. Okay, he was well known in his specific circle. Okay, but outside now he's sort of the editor, not editor, but the co-author and ghostwriter of choice for the different publishers and agents who, they have a celebrity or an athlete, a politician, a business icon or something who needs to have a book written. John's the guy they call. After The Go-Giver came out, that sort of really launched. But before then, he was only known to a small group of people for his brilliance. Fortunately, I was one of that group of people who knew. So I asked John if he would be the lead writer and storyteller for this little idea I had, and so forth. So he was still very busy at that time, but he and his then fiance, now lovely wife Anna, they were in Western Florida on the Gulf Coast visiting her mom, and so they took a 4-hour drive over here to Jupiter, where I live. And we had about a 3-hour dinner at a local restaurant, just discussing the idea of the book, what it would be about, how we would, what we wanted it to accomplish, and so forth. And it was still another 3 weeks till I got a call from him and said, he said, Anna and I have talked it over. We think it's a good idea. And so, we did it. Now it was a year, and it only took us a few months to write the book. And again, that's because of his abilities. And but it took us a year and something like 25 rejections from New York publishing houses before we found our perfect publishing partner, which is Random House Portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Or Portfolio, which is a division of Penguin Random House, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. So those 25 times, right? When you have this dream and you say, we've taken a year of our life to do this project, and you really felt like there was a calling for you to get this message out. What did that middle part feel like when you were saying, okay, another rejection, another rejection, another rejection?
Rejections are never fun. I mean, by the very definition, by their definition, they're not fun, right? But they're part of life,
Hmm.
and you've got to go through them. A great friend of mine, Andrea Waltz, she and her husband and business partner Richard Fenton wrote a wonderful parable years and years ago. I think it came out soon after The Go-Giver, and it was called Go for No. It was a parable about a copying machine salesperson who learned, about and the basic lesson he learned is that yes is the destination, no is how you get there.
Hmm.
And they reframed no's not as something you avoid, but something you go after, because the more no's you receive, the closer you get to a yes. Again, assuming that you're doing things right and taking the correct actions. But in the personal development field that all three of us and though many of those watching and listening are in, there's almost I call it a political correctness where everything's supposed to be good, and everything's in, oh, rejection's good, and because I and blah, 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 and fill in the blank. Rejection stinks. Who wants to be rejected? Who wants to be told no? It's not that we have to like it, we just have to understand that's part of it.
Hmm.
And I've always said, when I've spoken to sales organizations, that many would be great salespeople, top producing salespeople, and future leading salespeople get knocked out of the business really soon, not because they experience a bunch of no's when they first start. It's that they think they're the only ones experiencing those no's when they first start, because they see people going across stage at the award ceremonies or having those plaques in the office, or at the sales meetings being the top, and they think, oh, they just got in and everybody, they just no, not at all. But that's not what they're told. And so I think every sales manager should inoculate every new salesperson, if they haven't been in sales before, and just say, hey, here's what's going to happen. Okay. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of no's, and you're not going to enjoy them. And they don't necessarily need to be enjoyed, but you learn from them. As Dr. Maxwell says, you fail forward, and you work with it. So again, it's not that it was fun to receive them, but John and I listened to them, and there were certain ones that was just, they didn't like the idea of it. They didn't think there was room for another business parable, or something that we didn't agree with, and but there were others that said there was something here or something there, and we listened and we learned and we adjusted when appropriate. We also redid the entire marketing um, plan and made it a lot more appealing. So we learned, and again, the one that ended up taking us on as the publisher Portfolio, they have been just great. They've been the best. I've worked with a number of publishing houses over the years, and they've all been nice people. But I got to tell you, the Portfolio has just been, they've been wonderful. So the one that was supposed to take us on is the one that did.
That's awesome. I want to go back to what you said, training salespeople, because I know you speak a lot at companies. And when I was in sales training at a medical device industries, uh, the thing that always surprised me were the reps that we were training to do something new. And they weren't afraid to sell it, but they were afraid when there was a problem. It was like, well, I'm not going to know what to do, right? I can sell the stuff all day long and get it into the hospitals and get it into the units, but when there's a problem, I don't really want anybody to call me. And
Mm.
we would say, wait a minute, but you're the resource, right? You're the expert. And so I think this whole, and this is really at the same time when I started reading your book. And I thought, what an attitude change. If we can just think about how we give more than what we're in it for, right? It's not just to get a paycheck, but it's really you're serving those people that are buying your product. And
Mhm.
so you have to have that accountability and that responsibility, right? As learning sales or learning in sales training, that's really the mindset that you have to go after. And if you don't, you really can't be successful.
No, I mean, I agree with you, and I would think that leadership within that company needs to see that that's an issue, that that's a cultural issue within the company, that you've got salespeople who they want to go out and move product, but they don't want to hear from anyone when they're so well, that needs to come from the top,
Yeah.
and there needs to be an attitude that is rewarded, and it doesn't have to be financially, but although could be, but rewarded in terms of praise, rewarded in terms of what have you, that when you get in there and you go after this and you are looking to help, your first thought is, how can I best help the client? When that's your focus and when that's a company culture, and then of course, you talk about revenues, they're going to come in strong because you're building loyalty amongst your clients who know that you have their well-being at heart.
Hmm.
So to me, it's hard to imagine that that's actually a part of the culture, but again, unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Well, and that's why I really loved to pose this to you. I was so excited just to know we were going to have this time together because I know you've seen a lot of companies. We all get bogged down in maybe two or three, right, in our careers, and we're really focused on how to develop them. And so when you're going out speaking to all these organizations about the process of these laws, that I love to refer these as these laws. John preaches about 15 laws and 21 laws and 17 laws. And so I wanted to really dive down and ask you about the five laws, how you came up with just five, and the ones that are really sticking out to me, right, are um, this receptivity. So you refer to it as it's the biggest one to overcome because it's hard for us to just receive. It's really hard for us to just stop and settle down and be receptive to gifts. So talk to me about what your thoughts were just in kind of thinking about this law and how that really can change you from the inside.
Well, the law of receptivity, which is the fifth law, it's the one that brings it home, because the other ones sort of focus on the immense value and the focus on such that you're providing. Because what the go-giver basically says, the go-giver um a way, if you will, or philosophy, or whatever you want to call it. The basic premise of the Go Giver is that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And this is important. When we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only um, uh, a more fulfilling way of conducting business. It's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any woo-woo, way out there, magical, mystical reasons either. No, it actually makes very rational, logical sense. When you're that person who can move from an I focus or me focus to an other focus, when you can take your focus off yourself and place it on helping others, bringing value to them, discovering their wants, needs, and desires, helping them overcome their challenges and problems, helping them ultimately get closer to happiness. Okay, people people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you if they need what you offer, but they definitely want to be your personal walking ambassador. So it actually makes very logical, rational sense, this shift in focus. So, the laws, the first four laws, the laws of value, compensation, influence, and authenticity, all look at from that focus on that other person and how we now. The fifth law, the law of receptivity, says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Now, really, this means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, but you also have to breathe in. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving, you breathe in, which is receiving. Now, giving and receiving, contrary to what we learn from the world around us, pretty much from the time we're born, whether it's, a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, cultural mores, what have you, we learn these, we get these horrible, horrible, negative messages from the world around us about abundance, about prosperity, about money, about business. I mean, my goodness, you think about it. You think anybody who does well financially has done it on the backs of others or did it through take. Look at and I don't mean to get political here. I'm not Democrat or Republican, but look at how how they're villainizing now anybody who has money, and you're now hearing about how socialism is being actually endorsed by so many people. This is horrible. This is and again, people with a lot. Now, by the way, if someone made their money either illegally, immorally, unethically, and I'll even say if they did it through some kind of cronyism, where they've bought special favor politicians through their donations, that's cronyism, not capitalism. That's cronyism. So sure, they should not have their money. Absolutely not. But no, if someone operating out of a free market base, free market simply meaning no one is forced to do business with anyone else. Okay. If you're operating from that premise, the only way you can earn a whole lot of money is to serve a whole lot of people with exceptional value. Because remember, and I say this when I speak at sales conferences, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not going to buy from you just because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so, which is great, because it means that salesperson or entrepreneur who can focus on the value they're bringing another person, they've created that context for business to take place. It's why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value. Right? So if you've done this, and if you've provided this value to the lives of others, and you've placed their interests before your own, and you've come at it from your authentic core, you deserve to receive. You've earned that. Okay. But when you have all these messages from the world around us about money being such an evil thing, and people who are that gets in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the messages that my friend Randy Gage, who is one of today's, if not one of the leading authorities on prosperity and abundance teaching. Okay. He has this great vignette I won't try to go through, where he goes through all these different movies where the messages basically come down to two types of people. Okay. There are the good people who are portrayed as being poor, struggling, always poor, but they're happy. Right. And they're honest and they're wonderful. Right. But they're always being put down, pushed around, taken advantage of, stepped on, stepped over by who? The rich people, who are always greedy and horrible and nasty and cowardly and have no soul. And these are the messages people get. This gets into the unconscious. He gives a great example in the first Spider-Man movie where Uncle Ben and Peter are on the couch talking, and Peter asks why they're so poor. And Uncle Ben says, well, Peter, we might be poor, but at least we're honest. What a horrible, horrible message for a kid watching that to see. And I'm saying, but it's just a movie. Well, first of all, no, it's every movie, just about. But it's a lot of the teaching people get. So now you grow up with these horrible messages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're bringing great value to the world around you. And you've earned the right to receive. But now those unconscious messages are playing. Well, does this mean that I did this somehow dishonestly? Am I a bad person because I'm getting wealthy? Have I taken advantage of others? Are people not going to like me? Are people now going to think, oh, he must have or she must have done something hard? Well, again, this doesn't make logical sense, but human beings aren't particularly logical. Okay. So that's why receptivity is so important, to master it. So we go back to giving and receiving. They're not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we know is that the giving has to come first. Well, that's universal law. We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. We give before we receive. But when it's time for us to receive, we need to allow that receptivity, and we need to receive with gratitude.
That's so powerful. I have to tell you, we've been, John Maxwell challenged me and a group to do a Bible devotional, and we started it October the 1st, 2019. And today we are continuing that. I think it's like 609 or 610 days. We just started Acts. And part of the introduction this morning was talking about the challenges of a visionary, right? And saying that if you plan to do something out of greed or power versus out of servant leadership, it's completely different. And there is a godliness to be able to be successful financially. And it is all about servant leadership. And so that's why I was like, the stars are aligned and the things that you study and the messages in the universe that come to you, like this is just making sense. Everybody that is struggling with this right now, I think a lot of people, Bob, that I hear from, a lot of my clients are saying, yeah, I want to start something new, but I don't want to look like I'm not doing it authentically, right? I know it's post COVID. I've got to try something new. I've got to learn how to bring value to people. And yet I'm struggling financially. And so I think this concept is so easy, but it's so hard to grasp sometimes, right? Just the transfer of how do I show up differently? And I try to always remind people, right? It's just about what your strength is. Stay in your strength and be authentic to that.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
how you grow through giving. It's natural for you to be able to really add value, be authentic,
Hmm.
become an influencer, and earn um, a sizable living through
That's
doing
right.
that. And being able to receive is one of the struggles that I just hear so many people um, come to terms with. It's like I don't have the value, I don't have the worth, even though I'm working hard towards something. I don't really believe in the value of receiving that much. And so, but that comes back to giving more, right? When you're
Yeah,
giving
well,
more, you get
it's a
more.
couple things I think. Because I would suggest this. If you don't believe you're worthy of receiving, then it doesn't matter how much you give. You're not going to allow yourself to receive.
Hmm.
So we have got to understand, we've got to embrace our own value. Uh, One of my certified go-giver speakers, Amy Wells, she coined the term walking in your value. Okay. And at one time she owned a wedding store. Is that what you call it? A wedding store where you sell wedding gowns,
Yeah,
a
a
wedding,
boutique.
wedding boutique,
Yeah.
whatever it's called. So, um, so she owned that, and she told the story about how that kind of business is is very much a discount business. They discount, and people come in, the bride and her mom, and everybody expects discounts, and that's what Amy did for years and years, like everybody else in the business, and she did well. She was very successful. But then she was from San Antonio, and I spoke there once, and I did a whole thing. We were talking about value and valuing yourself, and she made a commitment after that, which she told me later when I first started to hear from her, that she made a commitment after that talk that she was never again going to discount. Instead, she was going to recognize her value. She was going to walk in her value. Not only were the dresses and all the other things that are sold there, not only did she know she had a good product, but she knew her years of experience, her connections, her ability to help people look their best and feel their all that she knew was worth a lot, and that she shouldn't be discounting. When she told her team members about this, they were like totally did not want to have anything to do with this. But she said, no, this is what we're going to do. Amy Wells, within a couple of months, began grossing an additional $10,000 per month in her store from selling at full price. Okay. And it went up. But here's the thing. This happened rather quickly. But the first step was she had to recognize her value.
Hmm.
Because if you don't recognize your own value, no one else is gonna. Okay. Then it's a matter of now you say, okay, I recognize my value. I'm not going to sell on low price and be a commodity. I'm going to sell on high value and be a resource. Okay. So, how do I do this? How do I give more in value than I ever was before? How do I, and it's rarely does that cost an extra cent. Okay. We just bring more of ourselves. We
Mhm.
bring more of ourselves and our value to the situation. And that's what she did. And it changed her whole business.
Mhm. I love this conversation about mindset because that's really what it is. It's free, and once you get it, you get it, and you just start to do things differently, right? You do what you view, and so when you say, "I'm committed to this," I know it, I see it, and then you create that vision that happens next to really universe will respond. The
Yeah.
universe.
Great point.
Dennis, do you have a question for Bob? I know you're writing, you are just a note taker extreme. So,
Wow. Um, well, first off, I'm in San Antonio, Bob.
Oh,
So
are you
I
really?
wrote down Amy Wells' name. I'm going to look her up.
Actually, she has since retired. This is several years ago. She sold it and since retired and did very well. But nonetheless, look her up anyway. She is just a wonderful human being, and you should be able to find her. And she's on Facebook and everywhere. Amy Wells, really one of my all-time favorite people. And in fact, there's another. I don't know if you know Dondi Scumaci. She is a world-class speaker and author now in a leadership. She's often been called the female John Maxwell because she is so good at what she does, and she speaks and mentors some of the largest companies in the world. And what she does a lot of mentoring, team leading, and so forth. Um, and she, one of my wisest mentors and friends, and she's in San Antonio, and she is just such an amazing human being.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those names. As I was thinking about what you were sharing, especially on receptivity, I'll be honest with you, that's an area that I've struggled with. I love to give and give and give, but I really struggle receiving. And I don't know that it's a question of value or worth. For me, I think it's a pride issue. It's a sense of I don't want to need anything from anybody. How do you work with somebody that wrestles with that side of receptivity?
Well, I mean, I think in that case, we've got to then ask what's the underlying cause, because typically what we think is the issue isn't necessarily the issue. That's just how it manifests.
Hmm.
It's sort of like when a prospect gives the objection that your widget, the price is too high. Well, it's not that the price is too high, it's that they see the value as being here and the price as being here. If they saw the value being here, then the price wouldn't be too high, it would be perfect, right? Or so we always have to say, well, what's the underlying cause? And of course, I don't know you well enough. I know you're a great guy, but I don't know you well enough to know what is really the issue. So if someone said to me for whatever reason, and they said, well, I have trouble receiving because I don't want to feel needy, or I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of someone, or I don't want to feel like I owe someone, or I might ask, well, can you think back? Because, by the way, congratulations for being aware. Because most people who push prosperity away, not just in terms of financial, but in terms of physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, they don't even know they're doing it. They just do it. Okay. Remember, everything comes down to our beliefs. And our belief system was formed by the time we're little more than a toddler. And we grow up and we operate from what I call an unconscious operating system. It's like the first Matrix movie. We won't mention the other Matrix movies, but it's like the first Matrix, the one that was really good. And there were all these people living in this make-believe world, thinking they were operating out of choice, free will, and consciousness, and they really weren't. And that's how most of us are as human beings. Uh, who can blame us? That's just how, by the time we're little more than toddlers, we've accepted these ideas about how the world works. And we didn't question premises. We didn't say, oh, how did, whomever know this? Where did they learn, right? One of the best books I could ever recommend You may have already read this, but it was published in 1960, called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful book. And that's when I first came to realize that I, as well as everyone else, was operating according to a machine. That machine was my mind, right? And it had been programmed, and with all good intent, and with all, but right. And so when we have an issue, for of course, again, be aware of why it is. Okay, I don't like feeling as though I owe someone. Where does that start? Where does it start? Where did that go back to? Okay, where did that begin? And it takes some time to go through that. Okay, but once we do, and once we know, now we can say, okay, that was it. These things happen. This is what was happening. Now I know this. So now we start questioning premises for everything. And when we're all of a sudden when we're pushing something away, when someone says, "Oh, hey, man, you look great today," and we go, "Oh, no, I'm like 7 pounds overweight," or "I'm oh my no," why do I feel the need to do that instead of saying, "Oh, thank you so much," or "Wow, I'm very grateful, thank you." Okay. Whatever the situation might be, we start questioning premises. When we hear someone on TV say millionaires have no right to exist, okay, just ask the question, okay, why? What principle is that based on? Will that actually serve our society if millionaires are no longer allowed? What will happen at that point, according to economic law of cause and effect? Start the person who said that, where did they learn that from? Who did they learn it from? And how did that person learn it? Okay, and I'm not saying this with judgment. I'm saying let's just start questioning premises, realizing that most of the stuff we're absolutely positively sure we know is based on a false premise.
We don't know what we don't know, do
We
we?
don't know what we don't know. And
You know,
until we know that we don't know, we can't know that we don't know.
right. We Dennis and I are so about this law of influence, and I know you are. It's one of your 5 pillars. And I think what we talk about is leadership, is influence, and so much of this is who we've been surrounded by, what our environment has been telling us, and that's what you've just been talking about. And I think without being able to have good influences in our life and choose those correctly, it's really hard to kind of switch that mindset into a giver's mindset. But your book, The Go Giver, is really easy to kind of digest, and it's easy to apply, and it's easy for people to say, if I've never experienced this before, or if I need to change something, I could just start with these principles, and it would really open your heart, right? It opens your heart and it opens your mind to think differently. And that's what I love about this process, Bob. It came to me at a time when I was moving, in profession, and really being challenged to think differently. And I read your book, and then I joined the John Maxwell team shortly after. So you've had a big impact in the decisions that I've made personally, to
You
just think about my
honored to know
own
that. Thank you.
self-worth. Yes, and start a brand, or a following, which I believe every single person has the ability to be a leader in their life. And so what I know is, people that we are surrounded by really make us and help us to become stronger. And I did a little bit of research, and I want to ask you this question about a testimonial that you received, a tweet from a shark. When Barbara sent a message about you, just about the Go Giver, um, were you surprised? And how did that make you feel when you were getting recognized, I guess, by people that had what we may see as credibility or celebrity, or, people maybe idolize them or want their attention, and they were giving you attention? How did that kind of change how you felt about what your project?
Um, did it change what I felt about it, I don't know. It felt very good to, by the way, just to get that compliment, of course. I mean,
Yes,
I
yes.
treasure that. Uh, I don't know if it intrinsically made me feel any different about it. Whenever we've had anyone, uh, say something nice about it, it's always a joy to hear something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think you just have to accept it with gratitude and to say, wow, it's just a nice thing to hear something like that.
Yep. Well, because we talk about every day about the influences, right? And so when someone out of the blue kind of says, "Hey, I really believe in that too, and I respect your journey and I celebrate you." I just think it's really wonderful to be able to connect to other influencers and support the journey. And sometimes it's a surprise. That's the biggest gift, right? And that's to receive that and just be so gracious of, and now how can we pour into other people, which that's what you do best.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate it. That means a lot to me that you would say that. Thank you.
You do, you do. I just really appreciate what you stand for, what you've been able to do, how you're pouring into the world, making an impact in this idea of giving and helping people do it in very small, specific steps. I have a really hard time getting structure in my life, so that's another reason why I highly recommend this process because it keeps you accountable and you can do it very quickly. And anybody, right? Anybody can receive this. Dennis, did you have something?
Oh my. I just had Bob, one thing that I noticed about you, we're actually connected on LinkedIn, and I noticed this right away. You responded. We've never met before, never talked before, and I sent you a message, and you responded to it. And every time I've messaged you, you've responded. Is that something that you do on a regular basis? I mean, that's LinkedIn is. I would suspect that you have a lot of connections on LinkedIn that reach out to you. How do you keep up the correspondence with the people that message you? And by the way, I really appreciate you responding to those messages.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And yes, I do respond to every message. It's something I hold to be of high value. So it's something that is congruent with for me to do that, and would be incongruent with my values for me not to. The way I'm able to do this is I put boundaries around what I will do and what I won't do. Okay, and let me just explain, if I may. There's certain things that I think are very important to do, and that is to thank people and to acknowledge people. So when someone posts something about the book or whatever it is they post about, I publicly thank them. If it's on a public post, I typically do a post on LinkedIn every day. Usually every morning. And so when we get comments, always write back. When someone sends me a message, private message, always. But here's something that one thing that I don't do. I'm often, and I'm sure the same thing happens to both of you as well, but I'm asked several times a day by someone who I've just met to get on a Zoom call to say hi or get to know each other or do this or do that. There's no way I could do that and still be able to do the other things I need to do. So I very tactfully, very politely, let them know that while I appreciate their very kind offer, it's not something I'm able to do. So forth and so on, and that's it. I send that back, and often they'll write back saying, "Oh, sure, I understand, thank you," what have you. But if I was to do that, I wouldn't have. Or I'm constantly asked by people to read the drafts of their books to give which doesn't sound like a big thing. Well, it is a big thing because each book would be about 3 or 4 hours. I'm just at this point not able to do that and be able to still do what I need to do in order to take the time that I feel I need to. So, you always have to look at what you can do and what you can't do and be willing to stick to your boundaries that you've set, but always do it in a nice way that's kind and tactful and honors the other person. um, and so that's what I do. I am able to set limits and I'm able to say no. It's just that I do it in a way that is hopefully very considerate of the other person.
That's good. So when you respond to those, let me follow up with this question. Do you have a block time in your schedule to respond to those? What's that process look like for you with responding to those messages on LinkedIn?
Well, at this point, because I've taken myself off the road in terms of speaking now. So it used to be, what used to be difficult is when I was on the road for 2, 3, 4, 5 days at a time. I'd bring my laptop with me and I'd answer questions and I'd respond very early in the morning or late at night, or when I wasn't speaking, you know what I'm saying, and or on the
Hmm.
plane and so forth. But it took time to get to people, and to but because I'm now no longer on the road, I'm still doing lots of keynote talks. I'm just doing them from right here. Okay. So I enjoy tremendously. So because of that, I'm actually at the computer a lot more. So I'm doing a lot more content creation than I was before. And of course, Kathy, my business partner, and I have our team of certified Go-Giver speakers, and we have our Go-Giver Success Alliance membership community, and all that's right from the computer. So that this gives me time, a lot more time than I had before, to be able to do that. It's still, it's still a lot of extra work to do, but again, because it's congruent with what I believe is important, I make the time to do it.
Mhm. That leads right into my next question, which was all about your training group and the Success Alliance. So tell us about that. How do people get involved? And what's kind of your framework for the ideal person that fits into this program with you?
Well, our certified Go-Giver speakers are typically 35 years of age and older. And the reason why is because they're typically already very successful at what they're doing. So we have people who are CEOs, we have people who are, leading salespeople in companies, longtime financial advisors. We have lots of very top producing realtors or managers of law firms and so forth. So we have a lot of people who've already kind of made their career, so to speak. And they at one time either picked up the book, or most of them were already, they were go-givers before they ever read the book, like the two of you. And I mean, they were already doing these things. But they found out about the speaking program and they wanted to have a second career as a speaker or a coach or what have you. So we licensed that. And that's typically the person who's interested in that. The Go-Giver Success Alliance is an online mentorship membership community. And I call it a mentorship community because while I might be the guide, I'm not the only, we're all mentoring each other. So again, it tends to be people. There's some younger people though in this one than with the other, but they tend to again be at least fairly successful already, and looking to grow. And there's a whole lot of group learning, discussing, strategizing, collaborating, relationship building. It's highlighted by a 1 hour video Zoom conference every week. But basically, we have things going on the site 5 days a week. And of course, 7 days a week, 24 hours, as long as someone has their smartphone, they're always connected and the conversations go back and forth and so forth.
Hmm.
So those are just both are just so much fun.
Well, I think that's wonderful. So, what has changed for you during COVID? And you say you've come off of the road, but
Yeah.
what's really been your biggest like aha moment through the last 18 months?
Well, so it's interesting you asked that because for the last 5 years, I've been doing less and less on the road. I've cut down my speaking engagements that I'll accept that are outside of Florida, that I have to get on a plane for. I mean, I'd still speak at a conference if it's in Miami or Orlando or because I'll get in the car and drive a few hours. I don't mind that, but I'm talking about getting on a plane. So I'd been because I've been doing this for a while. I'm an older guy. I'm 63. I've been speaking for a long time, and I never really enjoyed the travel aspect anyway. But it was always part of it. You're going to do certain things that I'm very blessed to have this career. If you have to travel to do it, okay. I'm just not someone who loves that aspect. But I don't like that aspect of it. So for the last 5 years or so, I've been doing less and less engagements. Well, COVID happened, and of course, like everybody else, my engagements were taken off the books and so forth. And but interestingly, um, you know, it really made me realize that I don't want to leave my home. you know, and again, at 63 or 62, I guess I was when when COVID hit. I said, and there's certainly nothing about COVID that I liked, and my heart breaks for the how the world has been affected and the many people. So I don't want anyone in any way to think I'm you know but that I'm not acknowledging that. But for me, it was, if I really don't like traveling that much and I'm loving being home, why am I even doing it? I don't need to anymore. It's like, I was operating out of habit, thinking, well, I'm little by little getting myself off the road. No, I'm off the road.
So you're the reason that this happened.
So,
We always say there was
right,
one
thanks.
person that was supposed to receive the message.
No respect.
So we sacrifice for you, Bob. Oh, sorry.
That one I will not receive.
But I think for a lot of people, right, it was just it was stepping back and really reflecting on, do I really need to do this? Does this serve me? And how do I see the rest of my life to be able to serve others? And so pivoting and really understanding that, hey, you can still use your gifts, like John says, right? You can use your strengths and you can do it in a different capacity. And so I think that's what's been a huge lesson for so many people. And man, I really adore you. I am just so blessed to have this time. And Dennis, I am so grateful that you joined us as well here in the back
Thank you,
room.
Dennis.
Oh wow. I just clicked in to be on the call, and Mel, you bring me right into the inner circle to ask questions. Thank you. I'm grateful for you, my friend. And Bob, wow, what an honor. What an honor
Mine. Thank you.
to spend time with you. I've got your books right here on my shelf behind me.
Thank you.
I feel like a kid in a candy shop right now.
I know. I'm bringing mine to Jupiter next time
And I
I'm
see a
down
bunch
there.
of Dr. Maxwell's books back there. I've got my Dr. Maxwell library as well, and it's treasure
Yes, sir.
part of my library.
Ugh, it's a wonderful community, isn't it? So wonderful. Well, Bob, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and sharing today. And I know this group, whether they're watching live or they're on the replay, they're going to have so much value in their lives today from this. And I just appreciate you. And I invite you back. Pop in and say hello whenever you can, whenever you're looking for a little bit of entertainment. And we just really appreciate you. Thank you for being a go-giver and an everyday leader, because that's what we need, is influence and people to step up and say, hey, it's not that hard. It might be scary, but we will help be your mentors and your friends. And so we just really appreciate you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of 2021. I hope it's safe. And if you guys are watching and you need someone as a keynote virtually, you know how to get a hold of Bob right here. Just tag him and we can arrange that for you. And if you don't have the book, Go Givers, the whole series, you can find that bobburg.com and order those books, because they're great. They changed my life, and I know it will make a big impact for you. So thank you again, Bob. Have a great afternoon, and thank you, Dennis, for joining. And you guys come back and join us anytime.